Who gon' take it there? 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 Electricity, 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 electricity. You know what's in the air. 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 It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility.
All right, so the Democratic Socialists are in the news, and that's a good thing, I think. On one hand, you had Zohran Mamdani doing the debate with Cuomo. This is the actual general debate for the New York mayor. Then you also had AOC and Bernie Sanders doing their town hall regarding the government shutdown. So I want to go over clips from both of these things. I'm going to keep most of my thoughts until the end on this, just to try to keep it moving, because there's a lot I want to show you. In the debate with Zohran and Cuomo, it was mostly the same dynamic as last time. They traded barbs at each other. Zohran just came away looking better. Cuomo's clearly framing things in a way that's meant to appeal to non-Democrats at this point. Curtis Sliwa was fighting to be taken seriously. And the most interesting thing that happened there was that Cuomo demanded that Zohran denounce Hasan Piker along with Hamas. So I'll show you that. I'll show you Hasan's reaction to that in real time. And then we'll move on to the AOC Bernie stuff, where I think you get a good sense of what the strategy is, at least from that faction of the Democratic Party. So check out Zohran and Cuomo real quick.
In the theme of leadership, Mr. Mamdani, you work as a foreclosure prevention counselor for winning seat in the state assembly. You have no substantial management experience. How are you ready to lead the nation's largest and greatest city in the world in one day? You have a minute.
You know, I have the experience of having served in the New York State Assembly for 5 years and watching a broken political system, the experience of seeing a governor in Andrew Cuomo who would rather have served his billionaire donors and the working class New Yorkers who voted for him, and the experience amidst all of that of fighting and winning for working class taxi drivers to free them from predatory debt, and delivering the first free bus lines in New York City history, and in working with unions and working class New Yorkers to finally raise taxes just that little bit on Mr. Cuomo's donors to start to fully fund our public school. And more than that, I have the experience of being a New Yorker, someone who has actually paid rent in the city before I ran for mayor, someone who has had to wait for a bus that never came, someone who actually buys his groceries in this same city. And what all of that experience has shown me, which Mr. Cuomo can't seem to understand, is that it is far too expensive and far too hard for New Yorkers to afford to live in this city. And the definition of experience is not doing the same thing again and again and hoping for a different result. That's actually the definition of insanity.
Thank you, Mr. Mamdani.
If I can, I think I was invoked.
Yes.
In other words, what the Assemblyman said is he has no experience. And this is not a job for someone who has no management experience to run 300,000 people, no financial experience to run $115 billion budget. He literally has never had a job. On his resume, it says he interned for his mother. This is not a job for a first-timer. Any day, you could have a hurricane, you have, God forbid, a 9/11, a health pandemic. If you don't know what you're doing, people could die.
Mr. Mamdani, you want to respond?
And if we have a health pandemic, then why would New Yorkers turn back to the governor who sent seniors to their death in nursing homes? That's the kind of experience that's on offer here today. What I don't have in experience, I make up for in integrity. And what you don't have in integrity, you could never make up for in experience.
Yes. May be able to address. Go ahead.
I did applaud President Trump and his administration. I think it was a great accomplishment. I hope the peace holds. The Assemblyman will not denounce Hamas. The Assemblyman will not denounce Hasan Piker, who said America deserved 9/11. The Assemblyman just said in his response, well, it depends on occupation. That is code, meaning that Israel does not have a right to exist as a Jewish state, which he has never acknowledged. That is from the river to the sea. That's why he won't denounce globalize the Intifada, which means kill all Jews.
Let's give Mr. Mamdani a chance to respond to that.
I want to be very clear. The occupation is a reference to international law and the violation of it, which Mr. Cuomo has no regard for since he signed up to be Benjamin Netanyahu's legal defense team during the course of this genocide. And I find the comments that Hasan made on 9/11 to be objectionable and reprehensible. And I also think that part of the reason why Democrats are in the situation that we are in, of being a permanent minority in this country, is we are looking only to speak to journalists and streamers and Americans with whom we agree of every single thing that they say. We need to take the case to every person, and I'm happy to do that, which is why I was on Fox News yesterday talking about how I wish it was more like NASCAR, so we could see all the billionaires who are sponsoring you right on your suit jacket.
And Melissa has another.
We're going to turn it to Sally, actually.
Yeah, actually, this kind of flows, and then we'll go back to Melissa. Mr. Mamdani, you told NBC's Meet the Press that you don't believe it's the role of the mayor to police speech. Your words about this war have comforted many New Yorkers, but they've troubled others, and I want to ask about some of this. There is your recent refusal, as we just discussed, to condemn the slogan, Globalize the Intifada, which many view as a call to arms. In 2017, you rapped lyrics praising the Holy Land Five. These are men who were convicted of supporting terrorism. How would you assure New Yorkers, especially Jewish residents who might be concerned about this, that you would be a mayor for all? You have 1 minute to answer this.
Thank you for this opportunity. When I am speaking about the responsibility of leading this city, I mean leading not just those who voted for me, leading not just those who vote, but leading every single person who calls this city home. And that includes Jewish New Yorkers. And I have been so thankful for the opportunity I've had to sit with so many Jewish New Yorkers over the course of the primary and through the general. And it's in those conversations that I learned that this phrase evokes many painful memories. Memories of bus attacks in Haifa, of restaurant attacks in Jerusalem. And I heard from a rabbi about their roommate who was killed on one of those buses. And in hearing that and the distance between that impact and the rationale that some use of saying it, of speaking about the Israeli occupation of Palestinian land, is why I said that I would discourage this language that I do not use. And what I'm looking to do as the first Muslim mayor of this city is to ensure that we bring every New Yorker together. Jewish New Yorkers, Muslim New Yorkers, every single person that calls this city home, that they understand they won't just be protected, but they will belong.
All right, so interesting moment from Cuomo here. Obviously, Zohran is still coming across much sharper when it comes to the clapbacks and just kind of being ready on some of these points. Not sure exactly how many people Cuomo's message is going to end up resonating with. Like I said, he's aiming for sort of a different demographic of people at this point, which is frankly why he's polling as low as he is. We'll see what happens after this debate, what the polling looks like. That statement about Hasan Piker seemed almost rehearsed. It seemed like that was something that was prepared to put him right next to Hamas like that, and to try to put Zohran on the spot in this debate to say something about Hasan Piker. Like I said, it was kind of inevitable, but also quite desperate. I mean, this was never going to go anywhere. But real quick, let me show you Hasan's reaction to this.
Why wouldn't he condemn Hamas? Why wouldn't he condemn Hasan Piker? Why did it take us here tonight for the first time for him to say it? He still won't denounce globalize the Intifada, which means kill all Jews. Just say, I denounce it. He won't do it.
Older Jewish New Yorkers are looking up right now.
Can you address the question?
Is Hamas
and Hasan Piker? Can you please answer about your...
And I find the comments that Hasan made on 9/11 to be objectionable and reprehensible. And I also think that part of the reason why Democrats are in the situation that we are in, of being a permanent minority in this country, is we are looking only to speak to journalists.
Yeah, he just laughs it off. He's mentioned before that if this were to come up, since Hasan has done interviews with Zohran, that the easiest thing for Zohran to do would be to just denounce him, which he didn't quite do here. He stopped just short of that. And I think it's good. I think he played it reasonably well. I think most people don't really know who Hasan is, but he's at this interesting point in his career where he's kind of becoming a mainstream figure, whether the mainstream likes it or not. So that's leading to a lot of interesting kicking and screaming as he becomes a bigger figure. We'll see. I mean, Cuomo is doing what a lot of people have done and kind of vaguely gesturing at some pretty open Islamophobia, just trying to cast Hasan in that light so that people view him that way as some kind of terror monger or something like that. And much like Zohran, I think that Hasan's personality is his best shot at breaking through that, and I think he knows that. So I think he'll be fine. And it reminds me of this happened with Destiny too. Destiny got got involved in trying to get some representative elected, with canvassing and stuff like that, and like his name was directly associated with this candidate, and that ended up being a big deal. And I think that candidate had to denounce him, and it was this whole thing because basically personal stuff about Destiny, of which there is a lot that looks quite bad, even back several years ago, was starting to get dragged into this political race. So being able to put a lid on that early is probably a good idea with Zohran, and I think the strategy for him at this point is to signal that he is, ascending to the position of being a leader of many different types of people, walks of life. So the linchpin of that message is this affordability message, and some people are becoming frustrated that his tune is changing a little bit when it comes to the way he's talking about Zionism, the way he's talking about phrases like globalize the intifada, which I don't believe there's ever an instance of him saying that, but some people believe he's conceding the framing on some of these things. But I think it's more so that there are more factions of people that he has to signal to that he has their interests in mind at this moment, because he needs to be a real leader. So we'll see where that goes. I think there's valid concerns about what it means that he is swaying on certain things that made him appealing in the first place, but ultimately his positions are the same, and his focus on what he's going to do for New York has been rock solid. So we can only hope that that holds up. So to get to this AOC and Bernie rally, this is interesting to me because I think they did a decent job. This is the most leadership we've seen from the Democrats. And if Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries did a town hall like this, which they're probably likely to do at some point, it's not going to be nearly as good as this, and not going to appeal to people nearly as much, because those Democrats are afraid to say the things that are actually appealing to people. So here you have Bernie and AOC attempting to weave in those narratives that they constantly use, bolstering this message of left populism and weaving that into this issue of the shutdown in different ways. And the different ways that they're doing that is what I want to highlight here. So check this out.
Let's say that the White House and Republican leaders say that they will extend these subsidies. It's not clear how long, because you say 1 year is not enough. They haven't even really put that forward yet. I think the question is, does that need to be enshrined into law? What does that need to look like before you would vote to reopen the government? Or is a commitment from the White House and Republicans enough?
No doubt.
I mean,
Mr. President, is a very honest man. And if he says something, man, you could take it to the bank.
So you're saying his word is not enough?
Bankruptcy court.
His word? No.
So what do you need to see? What commitments from
I think we need to see ink on paper. I think we need to see legislation. I think we need to see votes. And I think we need to see these things pass on the floor of the House and the Senate and signed by President Trump. I don't accept IOUs. I don't accept pinky promises. That's not the business that I'm in.
Okay, so you need a signature from President Trump in order to vote to reopen the government.
Correct.
Okay. And Senator Sanders, on this front, when we look at funding that Congress has already approved, one thing Democrats want to try to do here is to limit the White House's and the president's ability to rescind funding that's been approved by Congress. As you're negotiating a deal, or if we try to get closer to one, is that something that's a deal breaker for you?
Absolutely. We are beginning, one of the things that frightens me, Caitlin, is we begin to accept as normal the unconstitutional, illegal, and outrageous actions on the part of the White House. Can you imagine anybody ever thinking that it would be acceptable for somebody to say, oh, people in New York and California and Vermont, they didn't vote for me. I'm not going to put federal funds into those states. You didn't vote for me. We right now have a president who is targeting the Attorney General of New York State, who is targeting a United States Senator because they did their jobs. Former head of the FBI. What he is trying to do and what ICE raids and knocking down doors are about is to make all of you afraid.
That's
You're
right.
a federal employee, don't speak up. You're a government official, don't speak up. You're in a law firm that somehow had clients taking on Trump, don't speak up because they're going to punish you. You are on CNN, we're going to sue you if you ask the wrong questions. My friends, what this is about is a movement toward authoritarianism, intimidating us all, making us afraid. And you stop and you think, what is this country about? What makes us the great country that people all over the world have always envied, looked to? It's the word freedom. It's the right to dissent. You disagree with me, that's fine. We have free elections. You want to beat me in an election? Go for it. You're a newspaper writer, write what you want. It's not having a president trying to intimidate you, sue you, cut your funding because you disagree with him. Mm-hmm. And that is the issue that we have got to also address, not just healthcare, not just housing. It's whether or not we stand up for the freedoms that millions of Americans fought and died to defend.
Are you, either of you, going to demand that they release the funding for those two
Absolutely,
infrastructure
of
projects
course.
in order to reopen the government?
Of course. Well, you know, here's what we have to say. Not only should this infrastructure funding be released, but in New York, which this administration is targeting in some of these infrastructure cancellations, some of the projects that they have canceled have been large-scale wind energy projects. That's affecting, and it's jacking up the prices in Mike Lawler's district, in Nicola Maliotakis' district, in Republican districts across the state. It is affecting, and they are jacking up the prices on MAGA voters too. It is killing all of us.
Are you saying that Senator Schumer should not be worried about a primary challenge from you?
I mean,
All right.
no.
Let me jump in on this one. This is
what we're talking about.
That's exactly what we're talking about.
This is what we're
You have a
talking
country
about.
that is falling apart. We have a housing crisis, a healthcare crisis, an education crisis, massive income and wealth inequality, a corrupt campaign finance system, and the media says, "Oh, you're going to run? What are you going to run for?" Nobody cares. She'll run what she wants.
Nobody cares.
It's the House Speaker and President Trump and the Vice President saying it.
Right.
Pardon?
Well, of course, they're saying it to deflect attention away from the real issues.
Exactly.
And here, let me tell you what the real issue is. Let's see if CNN talks about it. We're living in the richest country in the history of the world, right? All right, you tell me why we're the only nation not to guarantee health care to all people, the only nation not to guarantee paid family and medical leave, why we have a $7.25 an hour minimum wage, why we have 800,000 people sleeping out on the street, why we have a president who denies the reality of climate change, why we have oligarchs on top who have more and more power every day. Let's talk about that issue, not her own political
All right,
future.
so you see both of their skill sets on display here. I noticed this when I saw Bernie and AOC speak in LA, even though I was from quite a distance. What I noticed was that Bernie's voice carried a lot, and AOC is a great speaker, but there's a power that comes from Bernie's voice and a passion that even at his old age, with the little bit of raspiness that he has, it still carries quite a bit. And I think that's the case in this town hall as well. Not that AOC didn't do a good job, but like I said, they took kind of two different approaches. And you can see that here because Bernie is willing to take it to this level that I've been saying the Democrats need to do, which is making this shutdown about broader issues with the Trump administration. That's a risky thing to do because then it's like, oh, you are holding out, opening up the government, and all of the federal workers who are suffering are essentially being leveraged by you for political ends. It's tough to navigate that politically. And so both parties, when a government shutdown happens, are under a decent amount of pressure to do something about it because these shutdowns, and especially the type of exercising of leverage that Trump is doing as retaliation, has an impact no matter what the party is. And that's part of what AOC lays out here. But she kind of holds up a little bit when the question is, I believe Caitlin Collins asks, will you add this demand of reversing the cuts that you have done to the solar projects to the demands to reopen the government? That's the kind of thing I've been saying they should do. That every single time the Trump administration goes and does this and, cuts this program because it's a Democrat program, they should add something to the list. They should make the negotiation process harder for Republicans, especially because Republicans aren't coming to the table right now. So all Democrats need to be in lockstep. Okay, here's our list of demands, and the bare basics of that should be reversing the things that Trump is doing to exact leverage. So AOC is not quite comfortable saying that we are adding things to the list of demands. And that's the weird dynamic here, is that these are the messaging leaders of the Democratic Party. Between these two and Zohran Mamdani, unquestionably, they are the messaging leaders. They've been getting out front. They've been much more visible than the other so-called leaders in the Democratic Party, but they do not actually have the power and leverage of these negotiations. And so where they plan to take things from here is just as important as what exactly the Democrats plan to do. And I think they're doing sort of a tag team method here, where AOC is more focused on the details of the negotiation. Bernie is focused more on the broader struggle. He even uses the word struggle, which is kind of an allusion to class struggle, and tying this shutdown to that. That, I think, is the smart long-term strategy, but the question becomes, how do you handle the day-to-day pressure and the reality that people are going to struggle because of this? People are already out of work, they're not going to get paid, and that's going to cause problems that go much deeper than just Trump and his administration not being able to do certain things that they want to do. So that's the biggest trouble for Democrats, is if they overextend themselves in these negotiations, that's going to end up making them look bad and putting pressure on them to cave. So they do have a careful game to play. Ultimately, though, I think the gamble is worth it, and the urgency communicated by Bernie Sanders is the correct way to approach this issue at the moment, and it's the only way that we're going to push through this to a better outcome at the end of the day. Pressure getting pressed, do you feel it now? What even happens next, I don't really know. Voice carries less, can you hear me now? Soon as I get blessed, time's running out. Pressure getting pressed. Pressure getting pressed. Feel the pressure getting pressed. Yeah. Pressure, do you feel it now? I'm just saying this.